Give me your money, you stupid bitch. I'll shoot your baby, you dumbass hoe.
You're gonna be a fucking beast after this video. Watch it carefully and you will learn stuff that was never taught to you. Are you tired of getting shit on, man? Do you want to make those clannies angry? How about getting so fucking powerful that all the clans in your region will either be begging you to join or mauling each time they die to you? Think about it, man. These skills translate to all game modes in Chivalry 2. You will be pub stomping and crushing top clan members in no time. Get ready to honk some hootie asses with the official honking hootie asses dueling guide. Get ready to become the guy everyone fears after this video. In this segment, Teddo will cover light accelerations and light drags. So pay attention, you don't want to miss this, folks. End of quote.
Thanks for that, Sleepy Joe. Now, what you're seeing here is not good. This is a basic and easy to read playstyle, as I'm not moving my camera to affect the animations. If you attack with a neutral camera angle, which is where the crosshair is aimed at the enemy, then you're going to be easy to read against good players. But keep in mind, most team objective players are dogshit anyways, so you'll still kill. But I'm going to show you how to really up your gameplay, so that you can kill those top tier players. So what you're seeing here is an Axel, and this is done by looking down and into the enemy. You're going to make your animations a lot faster to read, which means that it's going to be harder for the enemy to react to, meaning that you're going to disarm them as you're draining their stamina because they're going to be blocking, as their reaction speeds are going to be hindered by these fast attacks.
You're watching a Honking Hootie Asses Productions video. Make sure to like and subscribe and to
Light Axels only work with slashes and overheads. Stabs can't really be Axel, by the way. And now what you're seeing here is a mix-up between light drags and light axels. You're going to want to be doing a mix-up between light drags and light axels in order to condition and confuse your enemy. By mixing up drags, you're going to condition the enemy to counter late to save stamina. Whereas if you do an axel, they're going to try and counter early. By mixing these up, you're more likely to land a hit because the enemy is confused, or you're going to severely drain their stamina, which will mean that they'll become more panicked as they have less stamina to counter. I start my light drag by making it look like an axel, and since I'm swinging from the left to the right, I want to move my mouse to the left and move to the left with my footwork, so that I make the swing as slow as it can possibly be. As simple as it may seem, what I'm showing you is what I like to call the mix-up, and the mix-up is basically conditioning your enemy with drags and axels. This confuses the enemy's counter timings. Drag will mean that the enemy will have to counter it late, whereas an axel means the enemy will have to counter very early. By mixing these up, you're going to make it harder for your guy to react, causing slip-ups. And this means that you're going to be landing hits, or you're going to be draining their stamina. And when your enemy is low on stamina, they're extremely prone to be making mistakes, as they can't counter much. This means that drags are more likely to kill them when they're at low stamina, as a good drag will usually take a counter effect to counter, and an axel will be more likely to disarm them, as they're going to have an extremely low window to react to a counter to a really fast exit. You also want to throw in some stabs here and there, and by doing stabs you want to look all the way down at your opponent's feet.
You heard it, folks. Make sure to do axels and drags, end of quote. Repeat the line, I just shit myself. Oh, and also make sure to throw in some stabs as well. Make sure the stabs are aimed at the feet. It's best to do stabs as a single riposte, so don't feint them into another attack to cause maximum confusion. In this next segment, folks, Teddo will be showcasing the different types of heavy drags. Heavy drags are good to mix up with your standard light axels, and light drags and stabs.
This is the first type of heavy drag, the stab drag. Stab drag is a very good drag to use and will have a high chance of hitting the enemy. To do a stab drag, start the heavy stab looking into the enemy and then pull it away with your mouse to the side, either to the right or left. Then at the end of the animation, move it back into the enemy with mouse and footwork. This is a great drag to use. It's really good at throwing off your enemy, but don't use it too much. I personally think that this drag works best on pole arms, such as the pole axe and the pole hammer. This drag, in my opinion, is also the best drag to use on noobs and team objectives. This drag always kills them from my experience. So, I've taught you light drags, and I've also taught you the stab drag. Well, another thing to add up to your mix-up is normal heavy axels. So, adding heavy axels to your light axels is a great way to throw off your opponent even more. Remember, heavies do a lot more stamina damage than the lights, And also, if you condition the enemy with lots of light drags and light axles and you throw in a heavy axle, they're probably going to think you're going to do a heavy drag because they expect heavies to be drags. No, you just axle and heavy. And now they're dead on the floor. I'm now going to show you how to do a heavy long drag. So this drag's amazing, especially when it's done with a feint from a counter. It's best to do these after conditioning your enemy with loads of axles and heavy axles. And to do this drag, you want to start with a counter, and then when you feint it into the heavy slash, you're going to move your mouse away from the enemy and use your movement keys to move to the side away from the guy to slow the speed even more. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, you always, and I repeat, always want to mix up your counter angles. So, you know how if you're countering a slash, it will usually be a left slash. Use the alt slash button when countering. You want to do this for all attack types, so now and then you always want to switch the counter up from left or right. Always use different attack angles when doing counters. And most importantly, when doing long drags, footwork is key. Moving the mouse away from the enemy is good, but you mostly want to be using your footwork for all drags. So if I'm doing a left slash drag, you want to move to the left using your mouse keys to move to the left. If you're doing right, vice versa. Also, when you're moving, try and move backwards with the S key as well to make your animation even slower. Now the last drag that I want to show you is the overhead toe drag. Now this, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful drags in the game. Basically, it's an overhead drag that is dragged to the max. Rather than just looking up when doing your overhead, you're going to be looking up and then moving to the side and moving your mouse to the side as well so that the tip of your weapon lands on their feet. Best way to do this drag is to crouch and look all the way down, as it will look like an axle and you will also have more time to move it up rather than standing up. So look down, crouch, and then as you're doing the heavy overhead, look up, then look either to the right if it's a right overhead, and then as the weapon is up in the air and it's all the way up, you want to move to the side and then move your weapon to the side using your mouse key so that you let your weapon drag back down onto their feet. This is a left foot drag. You don't really have to crouch when doing the left foot drag. Remember, this is why it's good to switch up attack angles. The left foot drag is really good, and so is the right foot drag. Switching up attack angles is a great way to confuse the enemy. The aim is to cause information overload. Be unpredictable, switch up your attacks all the time. And remember, your light axles, light drags, and light stabs are the key to the foundations. That is your foundation. Build on your foundation by incorporating these kinds of drags. Foot drags can also be done as light attacks, and they're actually really good, so do them as well as the heavies.
I hope you've been paying attention, man, because this next thing Tedo is about to show you is really good. The 360 spin. Make sure to listen carefully, folks. End of quote. Repeat the line. Where the fuck am I?
Thanks again, Jay. Remember, stop sniffing kids' hair. The next thing I'm going to show you is the 360 spin. Now, before you even learn to do this, I highly suggest that you use a keyboard and mouse. You want to get a mouse that has 2 side buttons. I'm going to be showing you my settings in a second. You also want to have a high DPI and max sensitivity in game.
Remember, folks, make sure to like and subscribe. This is a one-of-a-kind video. Honking Hoot Yasses produces the undisputed best quality video content for Chivalry 2 on YouTube. Be a honker and give the video a like and a comment. Honking Hoot Yasses for life.
360 spin is an advanced drag. It's very simple to do. You basically want to do a feinted axle and then turn it into the enemy. And as you turn away from the enemy, keep turning so the weapon does a 360. You need a high sensitivity mouse to do this effectively, so crank up the DPI sensitivity. You also want to use a bit of footwork when you're doing 360, but it's mostly to do with the mouse, if I'm being honest. You can do a spin from a counter or a post, either's neutral, but it's best done from a counter or a post. Feinted and single attack spins are really good at catching the enemy. Now, in my honest opinion, the 360 is kind of overrated, but it's like one of those special moves that you pull out from the library when you're fighting a really good opponent. Using 360s against noobs is... I wouldn't really use them against brain dead noobs because they'll mostly just use block and they'll probably gamble you. Also, don't rely on these spins. You don't want to just spin. You want to mix it up with your foundations. Remember, foundations is key. You want to do loads of accels, loads of drags. 360s are great. I think they're equal in terms of the heavy drags I showed you earlier, but a 360 can be a good way to come out of a stalemate. So if you're going back and forth, try and pull out a spin now and then, and you'll probably hit the enemy. And remember, the most important thing is mix-ups. Don't do the same thing over and over again. You want to be unpredictable. You want to be crazy. You want to go from accels to drags, then back to accels, then keep doing accels and back to drags. Throw in some crazy drags now and then, you know those heavies I showed you earlier, throw in some 360s, but stick to the foundations, accels and drags. Mix them up, don't just use one single thing. In my honest opinion, accels are more important than drags because they're the things that are going to be draining your enemy's stamina because they're not reacting fast enough to counter. Drain their stamina with accels, then throw in some drags to deal some heavy damage. Back to accels. Keep it constant mix up.
But before we move to jabs, Tedda wants to show you some more broken shit from Chivalry 2. This is the back hit. It's basically an overhead that can bypass your block and hit your back from the front. It only really works with the heavy mace and two-handed hammer, but it can also work on other weapons, but to a lesser degree. Anyways, I'm going to go race bait the nation to cause more division.
Thanks for that, Joe. Good input as always. Joe Biden said, back hits are pretty much really fucking. They look like normal overheads, but they actually hit your back and they can go through your block. But luckily, they're only really good with blunt weapons like the more heavy mace and two-handed hammer. They do work with the Mesa. I'm going to show you how to do them. To defend against them, you just really want to counter and get used to people. There's a few people who actually use this move. Muscle memory is key, so just keep fighting against it and eventually you'll know how to counter it. The principle of doing back hits is to basically kind of do an overhead. It has to be an alt overhead, so if you're doing a right overhead, you need to look to the left shoulder. If you're doing a left overhead, you need to look to the right shoulder. It's basically opposite, so if you're doing right, look to the left. If you're doing left, look to the right. You need to look above their head and kind of move to the front and to the side and then move the weapons vertical so they land on their shoulder. This way the blunt weapon animation will actually bypass their block and hit their back. This only works at blunt weapons most of the time because of the animations. Swords and other weapons apart from heavy mace and two-handed hammer have different animations and they will not work as effectively. So the final broken exploit that I want to share with you, I like to call it the fake overhead to overhead. This is an overhead to overhead slash that really works well with the Mesa and the Monster. It's basically an overhead to overhead slash where the fainted overhead looks like a slash rather than an overhead. It's really powerful. I'm going to show you how to do it. But basically, the reason why this move is so powerful is because on the receiving end, the animation looks extremely fucked up. The fainted overhead looks like a slash because you look to the left for that split second. So during the release, when you're in a high tension fight, you're probably going to counter feint to a slash, but really it's an overhead. So I don't have any footage of the receiving end, but if you do the overhead to overhead like this, you're definitely going to land a lot more hits than usual, and people are going to say you look good.
And now we get to the end of the tutorial, but I cannot stress this enough. These last three things are extremely important. Jabs are the most important aspect of this segment. Jabs, must I repeat, must be used in your foundation against players who counter a lot. You want to be jabbing from counters and jabbing at every opportunity you get when your enemy hasn't attacked or is doing a very heavy drag. Cancels are also a great way to break the ice. Kicks are also an icebreaker in a long duel and is especially good against players on low stamina or noobs in general. Gambles are the hardest to master, and when used intelligently will help a lot in beating those top-tier players.
So the first thing I'm going to show is cancels. Cancels are the most underused thing I see in this game. No one really uses them except me, and you are missing out on a boatload of opportunities to kill people really quickly. Cancels is basically a feint from chivalry or wartime, and people think, oh, it's not going to work. Well, it does. Works against all types of players, man. The best way to use it is to cancel a slash or an overhead, and then do a feint afterwards. I'm going to show you some clips on how to do it. Cancels are really fucking easy to do, so there's no further explanation. Just experiment with them and find your own way of using it. This next tactic may be seen as broken, and it is. It's basically abusing a mechanic meant for 1vxing a team objective by being able to cancel a feint or a heavy after hitting an enemy's block. You can use this exploit to do a quad feint, and you can also cancel a heavy and cancel your feint. To do this, you need to first hit an enemy as they are blocking. Your next feint or heavy is now able to be cancelled by blocking during the attack, and then feinting again to do a quad feint. This also works by hitting a dynamic object such as the bell or a swing in tournament grounds.
This is some of that hidden Shadow Realm Sith Lord shit. You're lucky I'm even showing you this. For real, man. And a quote.
Catch it again, a battle with friends and then protecting me. My ambition never seems to ascend. Believe I have to defend. Dreams that I have to mend. Got me feeling like I'm bleeding. This period don't ever end. Roughing it, holding something, you loving it. Bluffing it so no one else come up with it. Stuck with it, dreaming about more praying you end up with it. People asking what's up with it. Give me fat like unsubtle is wet. I can't lie, the dance giving in. Little sister asking me whereabouts have you been. Music life ain't the easiest, your heart's in the bin. I suppose that's your start and it's sing all at me. I hope you can pull me down. Like nobody is around. It's quite difficult when stuff ain't figured out. Speaking in future, hoping no one's in doubt. I'm a shot, let me speak about the mindset of a rapper. Negative energy make me feel like I'm a slacker. That ain't true though. True though, insecure in my views though. Cruise home, singing body artist, boy you're too cold. Holy joking, my pride has never been put on. My poems always been potent. I'm spraying bars in the open season. Speaking to you cause you are the reason. Confidence grew in me, so I'm feeling like I'm achieving. Carry on moving.
Before we move into jabs and kicks, I want to show you two extremely useful defense moves which will change your gameplay for the better. Jump dodge is a practice move to learn. It's difficult to learn, but I promise once you practice it enough, it will be ingrained in muscle memory and you'll be able to use this move at every opportunity you see. Jump dodge is used to jump over foot drags and to be able to deal with free hit on enemy as they are in the middle of attack and you are above their heads slashing at them. Jump dodges can also be used against stabs, however it's a lot more difficult to do so. But did you know that there's a way to actually defend against the jump dodge? Well, if you miss a swing, so let's say for example you've swung at an enemy but it's missed and then they're going to punish you for your miss, you can actually dodge to block. So once you've missed an attack and they're about to punish you for your miss, use the dodge button and then block. This will give you a free block or a counter, but it will cost some extra stamina. Keep in mind that this move will save your ass in every opportunity where you fuck up. So use it wisely and get down with the muscle memory. The last thing I want to show you that's part of the foundations are jabs, and jabs are extremely important. They are going to be a main part of your foundations, which means that they're going to be a part of your accels, your drags, your heavies. You need to do jabs a lot, and by that I mean you want to do neutral jabs, like when you see the enemy not attacking, jab, go for the jab. You also want to do lots of jabs from counters, so if you do an overt counter or a smash counter, you can jab from the counter. So you want to do a mix-up between your normal attacks and your feints, and then mix in some jabs now and then. You want to find a balance between when you jab, but if you do it a lot and keep doing jabs, you're going to learn your perfect rhythm, and then you're going to adapt and find out the best way and find the way to jab someone. And also, if you jab someone's jab, then your next attack will be faster than theirs, vice versa for the enemy. So if you jab and then they jab your jab, you want to go on the defense, as their next attack will be faster than yours. I forgot to mention, if you jab someone's jab, but your weapon is very slow compared to theirs, let's say you're using a method but the enemy is using a dagger, then you will not get the initiative. If you are fighting someone with a dagger, then they can jab skip you, which means that their attack will be faster than your jab. So do not jab people with the dagger or extremely fast weapons. Kicks are the last thing I'm going to show you, and they're basically a way to get free hit, as you'll obviously know. But how do you do them properly? Well, the issue is that against top tier players, they're going to always counter when they see you kick. So you don't want to kick too much. You want to use the main mix-up like I told you, accels, drags, spins, jabs, all that stuff, and then now and then, very rarely, you want to throw in a kick, or if you're really desperate, throw in a kick. Also, if their stamina is really low, they're more likely to hyper respond with counters, but it's all about the enemy. You kind of want to know when to kick, but the best way to kick, from my experience, is to always kick from a feint. This works with noobs. Always kick from a feint, or just kick from a feint. That brings us to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and before I finish, you're probably wondering, what weapon and class shall I use? I'm going to tell you the best metas for every situation right now before I leave, as well as a final tip on dealing with one-handed players. The best weapons in my opinion for duels, from best to worst, has to be the Mesa, followed by the Grand Mace and two-handed hammer, the Poleaxe, purely because its animations are busted, Greatsword, the Longsword and the Maul. The other weapons are good, but these weapons I've mentioned are meta for duels. The maul is a perfect counter to the Grand Mace, as it deals more damage, stamina damage than the Grand Mace will do. The best weapons for team objective, in my personal opinion, from best to worst, has to be the Bardiche, purely because of its range, followed by the Greatsword and Highlander Sword, because they've got very good range. The Mesa is just good all around, you know, it's like the jack of all trades. War Axe is great for team objective as it deals high damage really quickly, so it's really good for cutting people down. And the Pole Axe, just because it's kind of balanced, it's got lots of range, the animations are weird. The Spear is really good for team objective, but I've put it this low because it's just not really good in the one-for-one situation against someone who actually knows what they're doing. But since most players in team objective are shit, that will get any job done. But these tips are only my opinion, and keep in mind, the best class for duels has to be the Knight. I do not main one-handers, so I don't have a lot of tips that playstyle in specific, but these tips in this video apply to everything, so use these tips for all weapons. To fight against one-handed players, don't counter everything, only counter their feints, as their neutrals are too fast to react to, and a feint will give you a good time to react to. If they're axelling a lot, you want to do lots of light drags and axels. Against a one-handed player who is on the attack and offensive, do not rely on heavies or spins, you just want to remain on light drags and light axels. Please listen to that tip, it's really important against fighting a really offensive, good reading one-handed player. Just do lots of light axels and light drags, and eventually they're going to fall down, and you're going to break their shield, and they're going to get low stamina, and they're going to panic. But a good counter to the one-handed player is the Heavy Mace, as it deals a lot of stam damage and will break their shield really quickly. Hope you guys enjoyed.